Hey,
Hi,
Jack. How's it
everybody.
going there today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you very much. I'm dialing in from New York. What about yourself?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. When did you move out there? Because I know that Second City guy, then, of course, 30 Rock filmed in New York, and eventually you have to go from New York to LA.
Well, sorta. I went from Chicago to New York as a poor person to LA. Then I got 30 Rock, and so had to go back to New York. And then once 30 Rock ended, I was like, I like being tan in winter. Let's go back to LA.
And there you are. And we were connected to talk about Hello, Jack, the kindness show. And I was curious about some of the background of the show. Like, for example, a lot of our favorite all-time movies, we find out there was a working title, and then the final title is not what it was originally filmed as. Was Hello, Jack, the kindness show the working title that became the real title?
No, I mean, we did have to have a working title. I think a lot of that is just, Apple's policy. So for a long time, I don't think I'm talking out of school, and plus it's after the fact, but our working title was Hummingbird because a hummingbird actually plays a pretty large part in our program. And I mean, I can sort of show you on my camera, but like hummingbirds live outside my window and they're just beautiful to look at. Do y'all have them on the East Coast, or at least maybe this time of year, or do they come out in the summer? Or
They do, but living in a beach town, we don't even have mosquitoes. I think you realize with the Long Island climate, you're either going to have bugs or you're not. So we just
uh,
have pigeons and seagulls.
pigeons? Yeah, yeah, that's the East Coast hummingbird.
Well, what
uh,
can you do? But that was the working title. It wasn't Hello, Jack, the kindness show. That's what I've learned.
that is correct. It was hummingbird, and in fact, I mean, again, I think I'm doing some inside baseball stuff with you, but to keep it simple for kids, we're like, oh, why not just Hello Jack? And then you find out like some things have been taken already, are already intellectual property of someone else. So Hello Jack, the kindness show, which I'm real happy about because guess what? I'm Jack. It's a show about kindness. We ain't lying. It's not false advertising.
Well, that speaks to you, and a lot of people don't like to hear them described as a brand, but your brand is fantastic in that it's essentially you. It's an elevated version of you, and you've had long-term success being you.
Yeah.
So, when did you kind of realize in your career, like, hey, I'm going to be fine being me, as opposed to, Andrew Dice Clay being the exact opposite of who he is?
All right, like playing a character. That's a great question. I suppose during my time in Chicago, in Second City, in the improv comedy world, you do just start realizing where your strengths lie, where your weaknesses are. And
Mhm.
so once I realized that, like, oh, I can still elicit laughter by playing a version of myself. Also, I like playing a version of myself. Also, I'm not a great actor. So kind of what you see is what you get. But then I just realized like this is fine. I'm okay doing this. And I mean, I have nothing but respect for people with, vast range and who like really push themselves to delve into these different new characters. And until that day comes for me, I'm real happy to play Jack McBrayer or Jack McBrayer adjacent.
Adjacent's a great word. And being a person who has loved comedy their whole life, Andy Kaufman, we find out, was dying to be a kid's star. He tried to do some children's adjacent projects. And Pee Wee Herman, that was a kid's character evolved into, I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Was there any influence from other comedian and comic actors and improv people doing it, or was this just an organic thing for you?
It was more organic. I mean, I've learned so much from my time in comedy in terms of just how to produce a show and how to, have a character go for a long, long time. But more than anything, my inspiration came from shows like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where you were watching the real human being, Fred Rogers,
Mhm.
um, be that person, be that voice for young children. One challenge that I was anticipating and I feel that I overcame with Hello Jack was convincing a studio, convincing Apple that I was being serious about this, that this wasn't going to be some ironic or cynical take on a kid's show. This is earnest. This was sincere, and I was being my authentic self
Mhm.
in trying to, be this host. And I'm so excited that I've done it because now I have that confidence and I don't feel that I have to prove myself. And so I want to do more, like let's keep the ball rolling. I really like this area. It feels good.
You mentioned the magical word of producer. This is not the first thing you produced. I know you produced the stuff that you did with Triumph, other stuff, but was the goal all the way back to Second City to be producing and writing your own stuff?
That's a great question because, in a way, at Second City, you are
Yeah.
creating your own stuff. In a way, you are producing it in terms of you're determining what it looks like, how to package it together in a smaller version because you're just doing it for a theatrical presentation. Um, but I can't say that, like, as a young boy, I dreamed of being a producer. With that being said, now that I have been doing it long enough, there's something that feels good about kind of taking the lead, taking that ownership of content that you are creating, as opposed to, I mean, for better or worse, I was kind of just a hired gun for projects like 30 Rock or anything like that. You're just an actor who is hired to read the words that the writers have written and
Mhm.
play the part that the producers have created. All fine and good. It's gotten me to where I am now. But I think you do reach a point where you're like, okay, I want to take a little more ownership of this. I want to lead the charge a little bit more.
Hmm. Sorry, one more question about Second City here, because as the lore goes, you got 30 Rock because Tina Fey knew of you from Second City, and that means that work led to that work, led to that work. Were you part of Second City specifically because you sought them out, or is there a second or third troupe that you even looked at before you wound up at Second City?
Well, it's interesting. I kind of like stumbled into improv comedy. After college, I moved to Chicago simply for the fact that I wanted to try life in a big city that wasn't Atlanta. I love Georgia and I love everything, but
Sure.
this is a big country. Let me see where else there is. And circumstances led me to Chicago, which is where I discovered Second City and the improv scene in general. At that time, and mid 90s, you
Yeah.
were able to do things simultaneously. So I was at Second City as well as Improv Olympic, as well as doing shows at the Annoyance Theater. It was just a real burgeoning scene during that time. And I was fortunate that I was able to kind of like bounce around and get that much more stage time and that much more experience and play with that many more different people. Very, very formative. But yes, I mean, like my time there at Second City led to Tina Fey's husband, Jeff Richmond, was my director at Second City. So Tina Fey knew my work, time in New York spent together, and lo and behold, I'm on TV.
You're on TV. And you mentioned Atlanta. And now at this point in time, it seems like more shows film in Atlanta than ever before. The more actors I speak with, the more I find out they've never filmed anything in New York or Los Angeles before. Everything is out there. So, in a weird alternative world, had you never gone to Second City and just stuck around in Georgia, you might have had that career. It just would have taken 15 to 20 years longer.
Right. And what's so funny is like now all that production is in Georgia. I can't get a job there to save my life. Like, I bet I couldn't get hired at Applebee's there anymore.
But at least Apple, not Applebee's, has hired you. And see what I did there.
Anyway.
So, so where does Hello Jack the Kindness show fully film? Los Angeles?
Yes, we're in the LA area. We did it during COVID, so have to have a very strict protocol. We have child actors, so in a way that was great because we were super rigid with what we could and couldn't do, and they kept us in line, and we did it. We did it successfully. I was really proud.
How much of it was written in advance? Meaning, some shows, the creator of it or the star of it knows, okay, well, episode one starts this way, the last episode ends this way. So, in other words, they have the beginning, they have the end, they know the whole thing. Is that kind of how you work?
No, not for this kind of show. For a children's show, we do want to keep it more, easy to digest in one go. So a kid does not have to see the episodes in order, for example. They're a little more self-contained. We did have the luxury of being able to write pretty much all of the episodes during the pandemic of 2020 and then start filming in 2021. So we were having Zoom writers' rooms, we were having Zoom
Oh,
casting sessions, we were doing all of that in 2020 so that by the time 2021 came around, we were able to just hit the ground running, and changes being made all along the way. But for example, I remember in 30 Rock days, even though the writers would have like a 3-month lead time, by the end of the season, everybody was just like sprinting towards the finish line because things just pile up, and that's just the nature of it. But yeah, for this show, we had a pretty good separation of the scripts being written and then production.
that was actually one of my next questions that you answered in there. Was Zoom used for writing? And the answer is yes.
I mean, it was amazing. And I mean, I'm sure many industries have realized how beneficial we can be to be face to face and in the comfort and safety of our own homes. I am curious to see like how this changes things. For example, I know like in LA, a lot of just casting sessions are still being done via Zoom. But then I'd wonder, because also in auditions, you have like a chemistry read where let's see if the two love interests really hit it off. Is that still on Zoom, or are they actually coming into the studio for that? Who knows?
And
Not me.
press junkets are clearly still Zoom based these days.
That's right. I mean, this is Zoom based. Well, we're in different cities, but you know what I mean.
And then another question I have about you and your creative process is some people that I speak with can have 5 spinning plates in the air at the same time. They can just go, okay, we'll write for an hour or two on this one, and then the next day, well, that one. Are you able to creatively work on more than one project at a time?
Well, that's tricky. So for example, with Hello Jack, I was able to work on different elements, different aspects of this show, as well as like, different scripts at a time. I think I am able to work on different projects, but it takes a little more forethought and a little more just delineation on my part. For example, like, okay, I'm going to work on this project till noon, and then I'm going to switch over and look at these revisions for these, that kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure I can do it. I'm not going to say that I have OCD, but I have some of those tendencies, and sometimes those come in real handy. And I think that's where I would, capitalize on that, is trying to spin more plates. I mean, even with Hello Jack, the kindness show, I was wearing so many hats that it was wild to. I don't see how Tina Fey did it. I don't see how Tina Fey did 30 Rock. Having to write those episodes, be on the floor the whole time, deal with all these crazy actors, and also learn her lines. It was bonkers. So for Hello Jack, just being, I would have most of the dialogue in an episode. I would also have to be answering creative questions. I'd have to be attentive to how we were doing scheduling and budget wise, looked at script revisions. Oh, we have these cast audition tapes you need to look at. I was like, yikes, this is a lot. Daddy needs a nap. But
Producer Jack doing producer things.
Be careful what you ask for.
Well, tying that all in, to us, the everyday folk, the media elite, it is a new show. It's upcoming. June 24th, new stuff happens. To you, in a way, it's kind of old, not just from doing all the media junkets, but you were writing this quite a while ago. So are you allowed to say what's next, or is that under Hollywood Reporter embargoes and Variety embargoes and all that?
There's a great deal of confidentiality involved, but I will say that we have worked so hard. I'll even go to say that, like, even though we were writing in 2020, I was pitching this thing years, plural, before that. This has been cooking in my little pea brain for a long time. And so the good news was I was never frustrated with that. I was never ready to give up because of the amount of time it took. I believed in it that much. And I guess I was fortunate in a way that the messages we were trying to convey with the show are a little more evergreen, are a little more not so time sensitive, that they can't be seen anytime. So yes, I have learned to just be patient with when things are announced, when things are released, all that kind of things. I've been very pleased and proud of the response to the show. People have said lovely, lovely things about it. And my favorite thing is like when my friends will send videos of their kids or their niece and nephew or whatever watching the show and dancing along with it and stuff. It's really fun. It's really special. And that's kind of exactly what I set out to do.
Two quick questions, and then you're a free man. And the first one, couldn't figure this out. Who are some of your favorite musical artists all time, of the moment, etc.? Like some people, you look at their Wikipedia and somehow that's on there under the personal life area. Oh, their favorite bands are the Beatles and the Stones. Who do you like? What do you listen to?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I do have to give a shout out to OK Go, who did all of the music for our episodes.
Yeah.
But also, I was such a fan of theirs before. So it was so weird having to like interview them over Zoom because you have to act like you're not starstruck. And I'm sitting there like just trying to be professional, but you know, just knowing them and their videos and everything. Gosh, who else do I like? It's funny because you think back, I was having a conversation yesterday. I loved the music of the 90s. And that might be a little dated, but like there was good music in the 90s. I was an intern at a radio station in Chicago called Q101, the new rock alternative.
Oh yeah.
And so like I was just in that world. And I was very, very pleased to be like part of that, you know, like to be a grown-up who could enjoy that music and go see those shows as opposed to like a kid who hear it on the AM FM radio. But yeah, in general, you always got to say Beatles too. Come on. I got to work with Paul McCartney on 30 Rock.
All the greats. And the last question for you, because you mentioned OK Go, who I worked with for a long time.
Oh,
If we say the nicest person in the world is Jack, the second nicest person in the world is Dan Konopka from OK Go. Who's the third nicest person?
you know, it would be a three-way tie between the other three guys from OK Go.
Well, there you go. Thank you for your time and the many, many years of great work, and looking forward to whatever is coming next, no matter what it is.
Sounds great. Yes, please check out those specials and the digital shorts of Hello Jack. We got to work with like real children in the community who demonstrate their acts of kindness. And it was really special, really, really wonderful opportunity for me.
Paltrocast.